sounds like really scary. I'm sorry. They would always just call me fat.
Well, like your family just call you fat.
Yeah, now in reflection, they shouldn't have done that. But I had a lot of weight really quick. We'd help each other. I would like text my friend at like 1 a.m. I'd be like, Aradia, I don't understand this question. Well, my dad would love me to say him. I know he would want me to say him, but I don't think my dad's I want to say I'm hopeful, but I'm not. My dad knows Greta Thunberg's name, and I think that just proves that she's starting a conversation in places. Anytime Donald Trump says anything, even though he's not president anymore, I just get frustrated. I'm a big fan of anime, and so people would come up to me and be like, oh, like, you know, yeah, you just want to be Asian. You're like the representative for your entire race. And I'm like, I'm not a very good representative. I don't think I'm a very good representative. She would never, ever, ever forget somebody's birthday. She had a book. Every person she met, she would write down their birthday in the book. Wow. And like, for example, our next door neighbor had a baby. She would come with like loads of baby clothes. She would cook every single time my friends came over. Every time I went to school, she'd be like, oh,
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my podcast, Coffee's on Me, David Quan, where I strive to give guests legacy-worthy interviews that listeners can enjoy while cooking, commuting, relaxing, or walking their pets. Another weekend episode recorded in London, and since I've just finished my internship yesterday, it is particularly nice to enjoy a vanilla latte with my guests. As always, if you've been enjoying the discussions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and I will just add that they are now also released on my YouTube channel, David Quan, with a 1-minute preview. Please do consider leaving a review and nominating a guest by contacting me. Without further ado, my guest today is Jesimiel Akinsuyi, who is a second-year natural sciences student at Homerton College at the University of Cambridge. She is someone who wears many hats in her day-to-day life. She's the Director of Marketing for a youth-led organisation and platform called United Nations Association Youth Parliament UK, or UNAYP-UK for short. She's also an avid reader and has recently started uploading and posting book vlogs and is documenting her journey in becoming a great storyteller to the world through YouTube. In addition to her love for books, she has a deep love and appreciation for music, something that has helped her out of difficult times in her life, and she returns this love to the world by creating music and acting as a musical director for shows that go on in Cambridge. At the core of her being, she is a charismatic and creative person who is driven by a thirst for knowledge and love for creating things. Jesimiel, welcome to my podcast, Coffee's on Me, David Quan.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited for the conversation we are going to have today.
That's awesome. So, have you listened to any other episodes?
Of course, I've listened to the episode which you did with Fortune and Sal, because they are my friends and they were amazing, and the most recent one with Lynn as well. That was really great.
What did you learn about them?
It's really cool to, see people from a different perspective, to hear them answering questions you would never think. Like, I didn't know Fortune loved art, even though, which was really interesting because he doesn't seem like the type to, be into painting and art, and that was really interesting to learn.
Great. And now that we're 2 months into the summer holidays, obviously you have such a diverse range of hobbies, and what have you done to keep you busy?
I love being busy, which is really frustrating sometimes because the minute exams were done, I was so bored for so long, and people were criticizing me for being bored because I'm also one of those people that complain during exam season that I want summer to come. So during the holidays, I have been learning how to code on Python, which has been very challenging but also very rewarding, giving me that, academic validation that I don't get during the summer holidays. I've also been working on my YouTube channel, which I started last year, but I stopped doing when I got back into uni, and now I've really missed it, so I've gone back to posting YouTube videos.
What kind of YouTube videos do you post?
So right now I've been focusing on making book vlogs. So I basically read a book and document my thoughts and my opinions, and the majority of them are spoiler free, and whether or not you should read the book or you shouldn't read the book. And yeah, those are the type of videos I've been posting now.
That's awesome. Well, when you messaged me about the podcast on Instagram, one of your more recent posts is Bill Gates' book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. I just did a 9-week internship on ESG and sustainability and impact investing, etc. So actually quite interested in this topic, and just last week the US Inflation Reduction Act as well. Can you tell us more about your passion? I would assume passion for like climate change and environmental sustainability.
It kind of came from GCSE geography. My favourite topics were always the ones related to climate change and sustainability, and just us being aware that the way we're living isn't the best for the future and we should do things to change. And is also the large motivation behind why I study the degree I study. And I love the ability and the space for innovation that it has, because there are so many cool things that we can make to make our society more sustainable. And there is a great need for it. And obviously we live in a generation, and thank God, like our generation's so aware and we're so on it through social media, and we're pressuring people and we're pressuring the government, and finally things are starting to change, but they're not changing fast enough. And I think that is a large part of why I'm so passionate and I'm always speaking about it, and I'm so vocal on my social media about sustainability and climate change, and just learning about it so you can start pushing people around you as well.
That's great. And the reason why I asked is one of the things that really impressed me about your post was that you kind of summarised the key takeaway, how that's made you change, and at the end you said that you're committing yourself to 3 different things. The first one you said was to learn more about politics, the second one was eating less meat, and third one was to kind of continue to educate yourself and spread that knowledge. And that was in September 2021.
Yeah.
How have that gone?
So
it's almost been a year.
It's almost been a year. So I do eat a lot less meat. I'm not completely vegetarian or vegan, but I've switched out majority of my dairy options at home. So I drink oat milk, dairy-free, butter. I only eat meat on Sundays when my dad makes a roast dinner, or sometimes when I have the odd McDonald's, and that's more of a conscious choice. And I've seen some health benefits from it as well, which has been really, really great. And hopefully sometime in the future I do see myself going vegetarian. It's kind of hard because my parents are Nigerian, so majority of Nigerian meals are based around meat. In terms of the politics side, I don't come from like a politics background. I come from a STEM background, but I think they're very much interlinked. So I've really made an effort of following pages on social media that are very specific to sustainability and climate change. For example, like Bloomberg Climate, following people on Twitter, YouTube videos, TikTok videos, just every day trying to learn something new. And I'm not perfect. I may get things wrong. I may miss a piece of news, but just the fact that I'm committed to just, keeping up with everything, I think is very important. And on my social media, I try, anytime I see something really cool, I repost it. On the UNAYP's Instagram page, we're constantly making infographics and sharing news and pieces that surround about climate change and sustainability because of my personal agenda for it, and I'm the director, so I see kind of goes.
That's great, and you're certainly very humble and also very right that we all need to continue to monitor the space. And without boring you with what I have learned on my internship this summer, but one of my takeaways is also like the evolving regulations and the differences between different like geographical regions. Like Europe, for example, is far ahead of the US, and with the recent scrutiny of ESG. I don't know if you read the latest like issue of The Economist as well, where they kind of criticize ESG and impact investing for reasons such as like subjective ratings and non-standardization, non-transparency. But as you're kind of reading the news and monitoring the evolving kind of changes that are, with the net zero commitments that governments and corporations are making, how are you feeling as a young person about the track that we're on?
I want to say I'm hopeful, but I'm not. And I think that comes back to what you mentioned in the Economist article, that not a lot of companies and governments are transparent enough about the emissions and the things and the methods that they do and all of those processes. And obviously you've probably heard of greenwashing, and for those that don't know, it's the idea that companies try to present themselves as a front of more sustainable by like McDonald's switching to paper straws. Oh my god, we're being more sustainable. That's a form of greenwashing, because actually the things that they do most to admit, what are they doing to change that? And I think that does also link back to government policies. What government regulations are being put in place that are going to force these companies to be more transparent and to change their ways, essentially.
I'm impressed that you know about greenwashing, which is a core part of my research this summer. Indeed, greenwashing is when, they overstate or exaggerate or deceive, put out deceiving information about their sustainable impact. And Europe is leading the way with the EU taxonomy, the SFDR, which is called the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, also MiFID II. I don't expect you to know any of that, but on a very high level, do you feel like actual change is taking place, or do you feel like a lot of it is a marketing ploy?
I think a lot of it is a marketing ploy, but at the same time, I'm hopeful on the side that a lot of young people are realizing this and they're starting their own companies, they're starting their own startups, they are starting conversations in their places of work, which I think over time, as these companies get bigger and they start competing with the big leagues, that's when the big leagues are going to be like, oh my God, people really, really care about this and they're actually knowledgeable about this and we can't lie to them anymore. And I think that's when we'll start to see a change.
What role do you think activists, like youth activists, play in this process?
I think youth activists are there to make the old people realise that we care. Why, yes, they tell young people what's going on, but young people are always on social media. They kind of see everything. We kind of know a little bit about everything. I think youth activists, for example, like Greta Thunberg, in terms of climate change, my dad knows Greta Thunberg's name, and I think that just proves that she's starting a conversation in places that usually young people would never be heard, and I think that's the purpose of them.
And as you embarked on kind of this process of spreading knowledge, what is something that you have learnt about yourself, perhaps about your capacity or incapacity to influence change?
That's a great question. I feel like I've learnt that you can't change everything and you can't change everything overnight. There are a lot of issues that impact me or impact the people that I love, and in an ideal world, I would be like Superman. Even Superman couldn't solve all the issues. With all of his superpowers, there was always issues popping up. So what I've learned is that I need to pick something that really means a lot to me. And that doesn't mean I don't care about the other things, and doesn't mean I won't speak up about the other things. But I'm just going to dedicate my time to 2 or 3 things and do them really, really, really well. And I find that it makes small scale change. Just the fact that my family's having conversations and my friends are having conversations, and my sister will be like, I spoke about what you told me at work today, and we had a really great conversation about it. Those small scale changes mean a lot to me, and when I start realizing sometimes small scale can be better than large scale, I think my mindset has shifted.
Was there a particular moment of frustration?
Oh yeah, there's multiple moments of frustration. Anytime Donald Trump says anything, even though he's not president anymore, I just get frustrated. Anytime I watch the news, any form of parliamentary debate, I get frustrated. I'm always frustrated because you kind of sit there and you think like, I don't get why you're thinking that. But it's not like I can go and tweet Donald Trump and he's going to listen to me and he's going to change everything, And that's the frustrating thing. Like, you can't change everything. Those are particular moments of frustration.
Was there a moment during this process of relating to climate change that you have changed your mind on something, perhaps something you deeply believed, but after reading something, after hearing something, after speaking to someone, you've changed your mind?
Oh, I've been having really interesting conversations with my friend Stephen about how effective renewable energy would be in terms of... Before, I thought, everybody turn off their lights, scrap everything, break everything down, just put in renewable energy, we'll learn how to deal with it. And just through having conversations and, reading the book and, reading the news, I start to realize how hard it would be to just scrap everything. I'm a bit of an all or nothing kind of person, so I'm just just get rid of everything. We're supposed to adapt, we'll survive. But that's not the case, because we're so reliant, and so many industries are reliant on the energy sources that we have. So we need to make a transition. And me realizing that, I think it's starting to help me when I read the news. So
excellent. That is certainly the transition's another kind of big theme, in addition to greenwashing, greenium, etc. Something I'm quite interested in about this area is for change to happen, for people to move and for people to act and for people to really believe in something. Facts are important, the numbers, the stats, they matter a lot, but as humans, as meaning-seeking creatures, as emotional beings, we are often touched or moved, or we resonate with story. And that's why I was particularly kind of glad to see, to hear about your journey in becoming a great storyteller. What does storytelling mean? And I just want to ask you about that, yeah.
So obviously it starts from reading. I've always loved books ever since I was a kid. My mom actually used to nickname me Cambridge. I don't know if this is like a Nigerian thing.
Nicknamed you Cambridge?
My nickname when I was younger was Cambridge.
Okay. I mean, fortune was fortune for the money. And
So, because obviously in Nigeria, they associate Cambridge with, like, smart people, and smart people read a lot. So when I was young, they were just like, oh, Cambridge.
Okay.
So it's kind of really funny that I actually ended up in Cambridge. So from that point on, when I was younger, I really, really wanted to be an author. I still do. One day, I will write a best-selling book. But but then I started like learning, through like songwriting, because I'm really into music. That's another form of storytelling. And my elder sister is really into drawing and art. I hate art, I'm not gonna lie. It's so boring. If it's not like moving or like making sound, I'm not really engaged. But my sister just taught me, like, look at how these people tell stories through, like, the comic books you like to read and everything. That's a form of storytelling. People that make food, and because my dad loves cooking, so he'll make like a really good dish and he'll tell me, like, my mom made this dish when she got married to my dad. Like, there's always a story in everything. And I think from that point on, I realized that one of my key goals in this life is to be able to tell a story really well, whether it's my own story, whether it's somebody else's story, whether it's a story I made up in my head. I think it's very important that we all become really great storytellers.
Absolutely, and it's actually something I put it quite high on my priority list, and I don't think I'm a great storyteller at all, but I'm certainly trying to work on it. So what advice, what are 2 or 3 things do you feel like people like me can do to be a better storyteller and communicate and deliver a message?
I think number 1 is to actively listen to stories. And I think it sounds really weird, but when you watch a movie or you read something, you start clocking, like, actually, this is a story. How are they telling this story? Or how have they structured this story? Typically when I read books, I always reflect on them. And I'm like, the way she, weaved in the character's past into the present day was a really effective way of getting her message across. And just actively paying attention to little small details of ways people tell stories and ways that people communicate. That's also a great thing. And then also just telling stories. I mean, through your amazing podcast, you're in a different way, you are telling a story, whether it's your own or encouraging other people to tell their own stories. So just doing it, because even if people make fun of you, they're still going to listen to the story. They have to listen to the story to make fun of you.
That's a very good mindset. And I thought a lot about storytelling, actually, as I was writing essays, because when I first got into uni, I think in primary school, you're kind of told when you write a fiction, like, you don't reveal the thing until the end. But then with essay writing at uni, it's like, you need to have your argument quite clear, and you need to people need to read your conclusion and your introduction and be able to understand, and the topic sentence, and just know what you're trying to say. And I guess, have you found that there's a different kind of way to communicate based on the context? Like on a podcast, for example, when you write a blog, it might be different to when you write an essay, when you need to be short and sharp and succinct.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I'm slowly learning this because I've been told that I'm too, like, direct when I write things. Even in my essays, I would just be like, yeah, and then my supervisor would be like, no, like, you need to explain, like, your point in detail. I was like, but I've told you the answer. Like, what else do you want from me? And even when I write blogs for UNAYP, again, the commentary I get is, like, it's just super clear, like, every word, like... But I don't think that's a disadvantage. At the same time, I guess it can be boring for some people when it's just super duper clear and direct. How I'm still working on it, I can't lie.
What are some resources that you found useful for storytelling?
I love listening to podcasts and interviews of my favorite authors and hearing them speak. I go to a lot of book clubs, hearing other people speak about the books that I've liked and their commentary on it. I took it's not Skillshare, it's FutureLearn. Took a FutureLearn class on storytelling.
Oh yeah.
Because I haven't done English since GCSE, so I had no clue what I was doing. And that was really interesting to see people who are professionals and people who this is their like living, how they would go about telling a story. Yeah. Have you read On Writing by Stephen King? No, I haven't. Stephen King kind of scares me. Like The Shining. I'm not a big fan of horror stuff, but like The Shining. So every time I hear his name, it's like ooh. But yeah, no, I haven't.
There's another book called Storyworthy by Matthew Dix that I read last month, and that was really good. And some of the simple things he mentioned are like when you share an anecdote, stop trying to go, and then this happened, 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 which totally bores people. But if you add in more of the contrast, like, but, however, therefore, that would keep people more engaged. And he also advocates for thinking about a 5-second moment of transformation. Every story should have something where you've learnt or changed and evolved, and know that 5-second moment before you start telling the story, and where you start is opposite to that 5-second moment so that you can get the contrast. And one of the exercises he'd done is when you kind of start watching a movie, you almost always know that the conclusion is going to be the opposite to how it started. If it started happy, then it's going to end sad. If it starts chaotic, it's going to end up neat.
Never noticed that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, I find it very fascinating, but obviously he's got many other details, and yeah, he's an exemplary storyteller indeed. And if any of the listeners are interested, that might be something to check out on. But on social media and creativity, you're obviously quite active, and we are a generation that has both a physical and virtual presence. What's your persona online?
I would say I'm very careful, which is I seem very chaotic on the internet, which is very funny, but I'm actually very careful about what I post now. When I was younger, I just used to post everything and anything. And there's a Twitter account I used to have, and I lost the password to it. I've posted I would be watching Dance Moms. I'd be like, I really want to dance. Oh my God, dance. I was just really chaotic. But now I'm very intentional. I think about the picture. Do I actually want to post this picture? Why do I want to post this picture? Do I want to post a picture because I like it and I want to share it with my friends? Do I want to post this picture because I want to make the boy that I like jealous? It's just about realizing why I want to post a picture, and if it's a positive
Did the
reason.
boy get jealous?
No, he didn't. So it was really pointless. But I think that I try to present my best self. I like to think I'm a very interesting person, so I try to post the interesting side of me. But I also have a private Instagram, so all of the stuff that filters through to my main account has already been on my private Insta with all of the bloopers and all of the extras and all of the crazy stuff. And I think that helps me, just streamline my presence on social media.
Great. And it is really interesting actually thinking about why we post, because obviously there are so many things that we could post, but how we select to portray ourselves is fascinating. And do you feel like that's evolved over the years? Obviously when you're a bit younger, it might be more kind of naive. It could be just to get some likes or get some validation or make someone feel a particular way. But now, is there a bigger, larger purpose to utilising your platform?
Yeah, I think especially because when I was younger, and when social media it makes me sound so old. When I was younger and social media started, it was generally just a platform for you to make friends. There was no monetary gain from it. There was no personal branding. It was just you make friends and you followed your favorite celebrities. But now I guess it's kind of changed. Everybody's you need to be careful what you post online because you don't know it's gonna come back and bite you in the arse. or is gonna, or you have to be careful because, you know, things on the internet stay forever, and like an opinion that you share or whatnot. So I think that it was just a different time, and obviously more research has been put into place on like the effects of social media on mental health and the effects on social media in every different area of your life. And now that research is there, and now that I read all that research obsessively, it makes me more careful because I don't want those negative impacts on my life. And I'm always preaching to my friends about it as well. They hate me all the time. I'm like, do you really have to, you know, do that? Does it really matter? Like, can you really think about it? They're like, I just want to post a post, Jesi. Stop asking me questions. But
have you watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Yes, I have. Like in A level, my biology teacher came into school. She's really dramatic. She came into our class and then she was like, guys, I've deleted every single social media app on my phone. And she went on like a 20-minute spiel on what The Social Dilemma taught her. And so my friend was like, yeah, I'm not watching that. I'm never deleting any social media app. So I went home and watched it. And I also deleted every social media app on my phone for like a month. And then I came back because that was like a very extreme response. But yeah, that is a really, really, really good Netflix documentary. But it's also really scary.
It is scary. And one of my, I think the last time I watched it was 1 or 2 years ago. But I just remember thinking, that was the point when I realised that as an individual, it's not about self-control. Whereas growing up, I always thought it was about self-control, whether I can control myself and not be affected. But when they know so much about you, perhaps even more than you, because they've accumulated all those data and utilising the big data sets, and, you know, you've got the smartest people in the world working in a team in a corporation to steal your attention, it's very much hard to resist it, and you don't even realise that you've fallen into an echo chamber. And that's one of their kind of justifications of why politics and public discourse now has been so controversial or just toxic. I also remember that line of if you're not paying, then you're the product. And I thought that was quite thought-provoking, where nothing is really free.
Yeah.
Like, you're basically they're grabbing your attention, and that's, it's fascinating. And I just personally don't know how to kind of resist it, because we do actually need social media. Like, there's not just the negative side, but social media does help us to connect with friends, to keep up to date, and certainly in a university like Cambridge, events run on social media. Like, if you don't have social media,
you're missing out.
Yeah. But it's like, once you're on it, you also have to take on the not so good side of things. And do you consciously think about how to find that right balance? Yeah. And how would you recommend, like, the incoming freshers to balance social media at university?
Well, that's a great question. I think for me, I try to be like aware. I'm a very reflective person, which is very ironic because I'm very chaotic, but I'm reflective in my chaos. I like to think, like, if I'm on social media, I have the timing, so I'm always checking how long I'm spending on the app. And if it's like, okay, my screen time for the day is like 12 hours, but I spent majority of it on the Kindle app, that's very different than me spending majority of the 12 hours on TikTok. And it's like, okay, why was I on TikTok? Was I just scrolling? You know, was I at a movie? For example, I love watching movies with my dad, but sometimes I get bored, so I'll just scroll on TikTok, being like aware in that moment, like, oh my God, no, wait, put it down, focus on the movie. I turn my phone off a lot when I'm watching stuff so I can concentrate. It's more about when I'm doing something, having social media not steal my attention. So maybe turning my phone off, putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't have my notifications on for majority of my social media apps, apart from Snapchat, because I get messages from there and I get anxious when I know that I'm missing a message. But everything else does not have notifications, so I don't get drawn in from a distance. Things like that, I think. Just being aware, like, why are you spending that much time? If it's you talking to your friends, that's, again, more lenient than you just genuinely just scrolling.
Interesting. I want to talk more about identity, and I know in our conversations you mentioned a lot about being a black woman, either in a top university like Cambridge or in STEM. Tell me about that. Obviously, I'm very open-minded to learn. I came from a school that was very, very mixed. Like, it wasn't heavy on
any side. I think it was very varied. Like there was a lot of white people, there was a lot of Asian people, there was a lot of black people. So I've like always grown in like a very multicultural environment. And it was only like when I was like 15, 16, 17 that like my identity was starting to be challenged, because I have a lot of different interests in reading. I'm also a big fan of K-pop. I'm a big fan of anime. And so people would come up to me and be like, oh, like, you know, yeah, you just want to be Asian. Because I'm like, is liking a K-pop group make me want to be Asian, or appreciating a culture? And it made me question my identity a lot, because it's like, oh, maybe I'm not listening to the right type of music, or like, I don't know, like, should I be listening to like Digga D? I don't know, I don't like it. Or for example, I used to like straighten my hair a lot, and it really damaged my hair, and I was just like, but that's what I thought like looked nice, you know. So going into Cambridge, I was really, really scared, because I knew there weren't a lot of black people, and I knew it wasn't a very like diverse environment. So I was scared of my identity being challenged, because when you're like the one black person in a place, you're like the representative for your entire race. And I'm like, I'm not a very good representative. I don't think I'm a very good representative. So it's been like a very big challenge. But through like going to Cambridge and interacting with the ACS, I became a lot more connected to my identity at the same time. But I feel like I lost a bit of my personality as a result.
Please elaborate more on like losing your personality. Like what does that mean?
That sounds like really scary. I'm sorry. I felt like when I first came to Cambridge, so during first term, a lot of my friends were from the ACS, and they listened to a certain type of music, and I just wanted to be cool. Like I just wanted to make friends, you know. And I really genuinely really liked the people that I was around. But at the same time, I went to the same secondary school and sixth form. The people that I was with, I've been with since like year 7. So going into uni, I was like, oh, like, what if they just don't like me? They might think I'm a weirdo. I had like a Blackpink light stick, and I took it to uni because I was like, oh my god, I love Blackpink. And I put it in my room, and every single time somebody would come and visit my room, well, every time a black person would come and visit my room, they would look at the Blackpink light stick and go, what the hell is that? Because they didn't understand the concept, and I felt really nervous sometimes to like, you know, be like, oh yeah, I'm a big fan of this K-pop group, because I just thought that's not a thing that black people typically like. But then obviously throughout the term and throughout the year, I started to slowly learn that, you know, people that truly care about you won't care about your interests. I know that sounds really, let me elaborate. Like, if I'm interested in K-pop, but you really genuinely care about me as a person, you're not going to criticize my love for it if it's not damaging me, and if it makes me happy, then why not? You know. And I'm really grateful, like by the end of the year, I like surrounded myself with people that I could truly be comfortable with, and I didn't feel like I had to put on this black persona. Like I could truly be myself.
Who were your friends at uni?
Name drop. Name drop. I guess like Homerton is like the best college in my opinion, because there's so many amazing people. Like I have my really close friend Michaela. She's a Landec, which is a bit disappointing from that. I'm joking, but yeah, Michaela, and like there's Angela and Annie, and then like Zion, and obviously like those are just Homerton people in general. And then I have like lots of friends from Lucy Cab, like my friend Caleb and my friend Mush, and then I have friends on my course. I have a friend called Yuna, and just like I have loads of friends everywhere. But towards the end, like I was very selective. Like if I didn't want to spend time with someone, I wasn't gonna force myself to spend time with them. But I think that's only a privilege you can get, because you want to spend time with everybody in the beginning because you want to make loads of friends. But then towards the end, you're like, I have friends. I don't need to hang out with you if I don't want to anymore.
With those friends, could you maybe share 1 or 2 traits that you really admire about them and how that's changed you over the past year?
Oh, okay. I'll start with Michaela. Michaela is the most nonchalant person I've ever met in my entire... I thought I was like nonchalant. I was like, oh yeah, I don't care about anything. I don't care about people. No, Michaela genuinely does not care about anybody. And I think that's very admirable, because when I would want to go do something, I'd be like, oh no, but like, I don't want to call them. I'm going to think it's weird. What if I'm disturbing them? She's like, okay, then they're not going to answer the phone. Just call them. Or she'd be like, I'll be like, oh, I don't want to put on these shoes. They're a bit dirty. She said, do you have any other shoes? Like, no. So I was just not going to go out. She'd be like, just don't be ridiculous. Just go outside. You know, it was just that level of straightforwardness, and the fact that she just genuinely didn't care. It kind of, obviously she cares about things, but in the general, she's not very concerned about how different people perceive her. Or she's just not very aware. Either or, that also rubbed off on me and making me be like, you know what, F all these people, I'm just going to do what I think is best. As long as it's not harming anybody, why not do it? And I think that's a trait that I really admire in Michaela. My friend Mush, he's a very deep thinker. I've had a lot of philosophical conversations with Mush, and I think I really appreciate, you know, being able to have like a soundboard. I'll like come and say, I saw on TikTok, you know, what is the meaning of life, Mush? And he'll be like, I don't know, but from this perspective. But if you think about it from this perspective, you know, that those kind of conversations cause me to go and think about things differently. I think he's really made me develop my critical thinking, because my course doesn't allow critical thinking because it's science, you know. So, yeah.
Great. I'm not sure about science not developing critical thinking, but I get the general gist of what you're trying to say. And no, I think the people who we interact with obviously make such a big impact on the way we perceive the world. And, you know, we're at Cambridge, I think one of the best things is living in college and constantly having to interact with people who are similar but different to us. And when we talked, you also mentioned a lot about self-confidence, and from my understanding, that's something that has evolved a lot throughout the years. And could you maybe like take me back to your earlier days, and when like do you have memories of when self-confidence or body image issues that you mentioned before first became noticeable? And I know that for girls growing up, that with social media as well, it's just at times very difficult.
Yeah. When I was younger, so I come from a household of very brutally honest people. I don't know if you can tell by the way I talk, but they're very direct and they're very brutally honest. And I was a very, very chubby kid. So, like, they would always just call me fat.
Wow. Like your family just call you fat?
Yeah. Now, in reflection, they shouldn't have done that. But at the time, it was just a joke.
So it was a derogatory term, right?
Not,
in that context.
It would be like, I would, like, be on, like, my third plate of rice. And my sister would be like, stop, you're so fat. That kind of thing. Which I genuinely like. I was an overweight kid. I didn't like sports as well, so I just used to sit and like read and eat. So, and then at the same time, there's also a bit of a language barrier because, like, for example, my grandma didn't speak English, so she only knew certain words, and one of them was fat. So that was a way of communicating in English. And I think that's a trait with Nigerian people in general. Like, they're very brutally honest. Like, you know, you'll go to Nigeria, you'll just be walking down the street and they'll be like, so for example, with your lighter skin, they'll be like, yellow person.
Oh,
wow. But you don't take offense to it because you just start to realize it's more of like a cultural thing.
Interesting, yeah.
Which is, so I kind of grew up, it was when I started like secondary school that I was just like, I was a bit more like self-conscious about my weight after that, because who cares in primary school, you're just a kid. But like when you start interacting with like people and whatnot, and then so my mom passed away when I was like when I was like 13, 14. So that gave me like a really big health scare, because I was like, oh my god, like I really want to be healthy. So I started eating a lot healthier and trying to, you know, exercise more. And at that time I was getting into K-pop, which and a lot of K-pop idols are really, really slim. And at the time that I got into it, I was so like into it. Like I listened to 20 groups a day. I would learn all the dances, but at the same time that also meant that I was getting the negative impacts of, you know, the way Korean diet culture is into my brain. So I started implementing those diets and I lost a lot of weight really quickly. Like I went from like 80 kilograms to like 60 kilograms in like a month and a half. It was like, because I just didn't eat and I would just exercise all the time. And then my dad was like, you need to stop doing this. Like, you weren't even, like, fat. This is, the most unhealthy thing that you could ever do to yourself. And then slowly, I started, like, missing food. Like, my dad was very sneaky. He'd be like, like, let's go to a restaurant after the cinema. And I'd be like, this tastes so good. I'm like, do you want to take some home? And slowly, I just started realizing that was such a toxic mindset to be in and to, like. And after a while, I just started realizing that it's more important for me to be healthy than to look good, you know. And also, this is me being an oversharer, but when I was like 16, 17, I it wasn't a relationship, it was like a situationship. And at that time, I wasn't confident in my body back then either, but I was in a very comfortable environment because all of those, like, my school felt like my family. So I was like, I don't really care what I look like, but I'm not confident in what I look like. And, like, the guy I was talking to, he was like, you're the most beautiful person ever. Like, I don't get what you're talking about. And I don't know, like, it boosted my confidence, even though, like, you know, male validation, this, that. Like, the validation did help me feel more confident in who I am and what I look like. And I don't know, I think now it's always going to be a journey with body image and the way you look and the way you feel. But just for you being aware of how different things affect you and just being aware that no matter what happens, like, as long as your body works and you're healthy and you're alive and you're breathing, then it's doing its job and it's good enough.
You're definitely very thoughtful and reflective and honest, which I really appreciate. And I'm sorry about your mother passing, and my mum passed away when I was 12 as well, so so I kind of I mean, it's never the same, right? But
you empathize.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, do you mind if we delve more into your childhood experiences, or do you prefer us to move on? Of
course, we can delve into I'm a bit of an open book, I don't know, so you can go ahead, you can dive in.
Okay, so you mentioned about that kind of increasing your kind of awareness about health. So growing up, were you in London or Nigeria firstly?
London.
And what was your household composition like? Who did you live with? And
so just me, my mum and my dad. I have an older half brother, but he lives in Nigeria. And then I had an older half sister. Because they're way older than me, we didn't live together. And I had a cousin, so my mum's sister, so my auntie's daughter. But my auntie was always travelling a lot, and she went to boarding school. So every time she wasn't in boarding school, she was in my house. So she basically lived with us when she was on holiday, and we grew up together.
And in London with mum and dad, what were they like? What kind of like values did they try and instill in you? And
well, my dad is like the calm one. He's very calm. He's very collected. He loves. I think my mom always used to joke that I had my dad's brain and my mom's personality. So my dad, like, he loves reading and he loves learning about things, and he likes being intelligent. I think he likes the pride it gives him. He likes being intelligent. He's very calm and collected, and he was very religious, but in a way that it wasn't like I felt like stressed about religion. He encouraged me to think deeply about my opinions on religion and...
What religion, sorry?
Christianity.
Yep.
So I'm a Christian, but he encouraged it in a way that I was always allowed, like, you know how people get told off for, like, talking back? My dad always allowed me, as long as it made sense. As long as I wasn't shouting, and I came with a logical, educational, knowledgeable, whatever argument as to why I shouldn't be in trouble, we were allowed to have that conversation. So it made me very honest, it made me very open, and it also, I'm very great at arguing with people because I've had a lot of practice. And my mom, she's very, like, fiery, but everybody loves her. She's very straight to the point. Like, she was a bit of a clean freak. And just a common theme, just to show you, like, my mom's personality, she would go to her friend's house and she would always be like, your house is so dirty, I can never live here. Like, that's what she would always say. But all of, like, her friends loved her because of how loving she was, despite the fact that she can be a bit brutally honest sometimes. She would never, ever, ever forget somebody's birthday. She had a book. Every person she met, she would write down their birthday in the book. Wow. And, like, for example, our next door neighbour had a baby. She would come with, like, loads of baby clothes. She would cook. Every single time my friends came over, every time I went to school, she'd be like, I heard this teacher's your birthday, so give her this box of chocolates. Like, she was so loving and so attentive. So that's I'm not as attentive as my mom, but in terms of, like, the fiery personality, I get that from her.
That's incredibly impressive. And
yeah.
That's something I really, really admire, actually. I think life is about these acts of, the smallest acts of kindness. We often think that it's the biggest gestures, but actually it's the day-to-day, and, you know, remembering someone's birthday, remembering someone's name, writing someone a handwritten card, giving them a book instead of a chocolate. And as you started your teenage years, obviously there was the passing of your mother, and do you remember much about how that shook up your life?
So So I remember like the moment. So I went to school that day because she was sick for a very long time. So she would often go to the hospital, but she would always come back. So at that time she'd already gone to the hospital. And in my head I was like it is what it is. Like I feel like to develop as a coping mechanism, I kind of developed this sense of like numbness to it. I was like, oh, it is what she is. She's sick. She'll get better, or she won't. So when she passed away and like my dad told me, I didn't even cry. Like I don't want to say I feel bad about it, but I was just very much like, okay. And I had a school project due the next day, so I went to go do the school project. Then I woke up the next day and I went to school, and I just.
Did it hit you later? Or?
I feel like it like was like a very slow build up, so it would like manifest itself in like very different ways. For example, like, it made me like very distant from a lot of my family because I was just kind of like, I don't want to interact with you right now. I just want to do my own thing, and it made me really great at school because it was like a very it was a great like way to just like dive in and just distract myself. But at the same time, it made me very distant from like friends and family. I wasn't very good at being like emotionally vulnerable for like a really long time. So if somebody asked me how I was feeling, it would always be like, I'm fine. Even with my dad. And the only times I would ever like respond to like, you know, the fact that my mom died would be like I'd watch an anime and an anime character died and I'd cry for like 2 hours. I'd be like, why am I crying for 2 hours? You know, of an anime character that died, but realistically it was just more the emotions that I felt behind it.
There's actually considerable research or interest in a lot of research kind of presents that there's a correlation or pattern of successful people later on in life, as measured by like who has Wikipedia pages and prominency, which obviously is very flawed, but you get the general point that a lot of them grew up in a single parent family. And I remember in Easter, actually, Ella, who studies English, I believe at UNAM, published a TEDx talk that was really inspirational, actually, and super genuine and honest. And I remember watching it and resonating with a lot of things that she has said, and I shared it on my Instagram as well. One of the things that was mentioned was, you know, once something like that happens earlier in your life, you almost like how much worse can life really get? Like you have gone through the it's really interesting. Not interesting, but it's something I often think about, like how that kind of stuff it impacts our trajectory and just how we perceive the world and experience things. And you mentioned about like you weren't very emotionally vulnerable or open at the time, and you would just respond like you're fine. Were you actually fine, or
no? Definitely not. I definitely was not fine, and until like I did like therapy like 2 years ago, like during sixth form. That's when I realized like, oh, I wasn't actually fine, was I? Yeah. Sorry.
Did you, like, obviously dad, your dad was asking you, and obviously you were very close and you had good friends, but did you feel like you had a safe space to talk, or, you know, how were you able to ultimately come to be so open? Like you mentioned, you're an open book now, like that's a transformation. Did that just come with age, and or was there a turning point where you maybe saw someone talk about things and you opened up from there on?
I think I'm still getting like better at being emotionally vulnerable, and like I'm very good at talking about my experiences, but I talk about them like I'm reading a book, you know, very detached. Like I don't feel the emotion behind it when I speak about it. Or like my friends always mention like, you'll be telling us like the darkest of stories and there'll be a smile on your face. Like, yeah, like so I was watching a TV show and the guy's head just got chopped off, and it was really sad because it was in real life as well. Like there's like a disconnect. But I have a friend who I absolutely adore to bits called Simran, and we were friends for a long time, but we weren't really close. Then we started getting closer together, and she basically taught me emotional vulnerability in a very weird way, because she was basically like, if I'm sad, I'm gonna cry, and if I'm angry, I'm gonna shout, kind of thing. And she was like, Jesi, like, you just have to be honest with me. You don't have to pretend that you're not sad. You don't have to pretend like this. Like, if you don't want me to give you advice, tell me not to give me advice. Just listen to me. And I really like appreciate like her presence, because I feel like she is like one of the only people that if I'm really, really, really upset about something, I'm gonna go to her, because she provided me that safe space to be like, okay, like I'm upset because, you know, he didn't reply back to my text in front. What am I gonna do? And she's like, okay, Jesi, what do you want me to say right now? And I'm like, can you just like tell him he's trash? Like, tell me he's a really horrible person just for now. I know he's not, but it will make me feel better. And so she goes ahead and does that. Yeah.
Indeed, back to that theme of friendships and the importance of people, people we surround ourselves with. So obviously one of my missions for the podcast is to give guests legacy-worthy interviews, and I want you to keep a piece of recording that you can look back on in 10, 20 years' time, and you know that captures who you are at this particular point in time. Are there any other main topics that you might want to talk about and be included in this recording? Because I think we have gone fairly deep at times, and I'm not sure if you usually have this kind of discussion and get it recorded.
Yeah, not usually recorded. I guess one thing I'd love to talk about is I guess my role in UNAYP, because that is a very big part of my life right now. So the UNAYP is an organisation that's attached to the United Nations, so United Nations Association Youth Parliament. And I joined a year and a half ago as a writer. I used to write articles for them because my friend was the editor. And then like in January, we just get a message saying, UNAYP-UK is closing down. Sorry guys, bye. And then my friend called me, so her name is Nicole. She's coming to Cambridge actually. She studied education as well. She called me, she was like, do you want to like revive UNAYP? Like I think it could be a really useful platform for people. And I was like, okay, cool. And so when we were picking out roles, I was like, I want to do something really chill. Like my degree is really stressful. Like, can I just be like a social media manager? Like I'll just upload on Instagram. Something really chill? She was like, yeah, of course, Jesi. So we had another director of marketing, and that director of marketing left. And then Nicole calls me and she's like, so you're going to be really angry at me, but our director of marketing left and I told them that you wanted to do it. And I said, but I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. And she's like, too late, sorry, bye. And then she cuts the phone. So for the past, since like May, I've been the director of marketing, and it's been a really rewarding experience. I love working on projects. I love doing things from the start and making it better and better and better. Like putting together the social media team and putting together all the articles and the blogs and really reinventing the blogs. And now we're also working on a podcast to talk about the different sustainable development goals and just working with people on those projects and seeing it all come to life. I think I can imagine in the next 2 years' time, it's going to be a very important and powerful platform for young people to learn and to grow and to also participate.
When you finish that role, when you leave uni, what kind of impact do you wish you have made, or when people think about you, what would you like them to, what are some words or what are some things that you would like them to come into your mind?
That she's really funny. People think I'm not funny, and that really offends me sometimes. See, that was my version of a joke, so I hope you guys laughed. I want people to say that, like, oh, Jesi, like 100%. Like, I have a very big, it's a perfectionism thing, but if I can't give 100% to something, I don't want to do it. So I want them to like remember me and be like, yeah, she really she did what she came to do, and she really set the foundation of what we're doing in UNAYP, or whether it's in university. Like, she is really charismatic, and she did what she came to do. She came, she saw, she conquered, and she left an impact. Yeah.
Who are your role models then?
Ooh, I have loads. There's like different ones for different reasons. I think it's very important to keep varied role models, because if you have one role model, my dad always used to say, that person becomes an idol. You should become like a mixture of all your different role models, not just one person. Well, who would I say? Well, my dad would love me to say him. I know he would want me to say him, but I don't think my dad's my dad's like my best friend, and I wouldn't consider my best friend my role model. So no, I think the only thing I'll take away from my dad is I want to have his peace. He's a very peaceful person. You know, the world could be crumbling down, and he'll be like, it's all gonna be fine. I want to have his level of peace. Somebody I really look up to is Grace Beverly. Oh, ask my friends. Like, I'm obsessed with her. I have all of her products. I read her books. She has she started a sustainable clothing brand called Tala, and she also has a workout and fitness app where she also sells fitness products called Shreddy. And I think I just admire her commitment to sustainability, the transparency of the brand, and also how hard she works, and how she's so transparent and honest with her audience about how she got to where she was. Michelle Obama is a big one, but I think that's more attributed to the fact me being a black woman and me being confident in spaces that I enter. I remember like one time she had an interview, and this was so iconic. Oh my god, she was like somebody asked her like, oh, how do you deal with being with so many powerful men in a room? And she was like, you get there, you realize they're not as smart as you think they are. And you know, or one of my favorite books was like, it's called The Love Hypothesis, and they were like, you need to carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man, because you know, a lot of ethnic people work so hard but they just don't have the confidence to go with the amount of effort you work. And you see so many like, obviously, like mediocre white people that do the bare minimum, and they just get to where they are because they're confident in the mediocreness that they've done. So imagine you being great and confident. That is like a dangerous combination. So I will keep it short and say Michelle Obama and Grace Beverly are like my two role models right now.
That's wonderful. And when you think about, obviously you just finished first year university, so I mean, I don't expect you to have a career plan or anything, but are there any particular areas of interest or sectors or that you're currently thinking about?
Yeah, so I was really interested in sustainability and innovation surrounding that place, especially in businesses. There's a lot of things that go into making a business more sustainable. So I'm really interested in that. I'm a big fan of perfume. It's a bit of an addiction. I love learning about it. I love learning about the process of making it, the chemistry behind it, the different chemicals. So I'd be really interested to see if I could combine those two interests together. Yeah.
Tell me more about perfumes.
Like, it's so... Obviously, there's so many different aspects that go into making a perfume. Obviously,
what about it really just engages you and makes you think about? Because I rarely spend time thinking about perfumes, in all honesty.
It was like I like the smell. Like, you know, when you spray a perfume or you remember like a memory, you associate smells with people or foods or things. And so I was just really curious, like, this is like chemistry in a bottle. Like, how did they make this? What goes into thinking about this? And I just think it spurred on my interest.
Excellent. When was the last time you made an investment where it doesn't need to be financial, but that you feel like really paid off? It could be investment in time, it could be a decision that you felt like, wow, thank goodness I've done it.
Coming to Cambridge. I know it sounds really weird, but I was really torn between coming to Cambridge and going to Imperial. Because I was genuinely really, really scared of coming to Cambridge. Not only because I didn't think I would do well, I also thought me getting in was a fat fluke. Because I thought I did horrible in my exam. I thought I did horrible in the interview. So I kind of felt like a diversity inclusion. Like, I had the grades, so why not just include her in? That's what it felt like. Whereas in Imperial, I kind of felt like I more earned my place. And then my sister, the one that's like my cousin, and my cousin that's like my sister, she was like, you are the biggest idiot I've ever met in your life. If you reject Cambridge, I will kill you. And then she also bought me a new phone to, like, you know, subsidize me going. So she was like, if you firm... She sat there with me on, like, UCAS, and she was like, you need to firm it now, and I'll order the phone now. I was like, cool. So I firmed it, and then... she got me a new phone, and that's how I ended up in Cambridge. And I've loved, like, even though it's difficult and it's hard, like, I've loved the people I've met. I love my course. I love the things I learned. I love the city of Cambridge. So even though I would be, like, crying because, you know, I did really bad on the essay I wrote for my supervisor, I'm still so motivated to, you know, come back and try it again. It's, like, amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you were called Cambridge as a kid, then you kind of almost have no choice to be here.
She kind of manifested it. It's really weird.
Thank goodness you weren't called Oxford.
Yeah, that would be... I never knew Oxford and Cambridge was like a big, like, versus thing.
Really?
Until, like, I was in my first lecture, and he said I apologised that I went to Oxford, and they booed him. I was, like, so confused. I was like, we're booing him?
Wow.
I was like, you know what, first. And then I developed a hatred for Oxford as well. So I was like, this is a thing that people do, so I might as well join it.
So growing up, when you heard Cambridge, Cambridge is obviously held in quite high esteem, and you mentioned earlier in the podcast that it's associated with like smart people and reading. Was there any more perceptions of Cambridge, and perhaps once you've come over, have any of those changed? Or
I just thought I'd enter and there'll just all be white people. Like, I was preparing myself. I was listening to ABBA. I didn't listen to ABBA before I came to uni. So I was like, I need to learn so, I can get along with all these white people.
So like cultural capital.
Cultural capital. Because obviously, again, the area I come from is really diverse. So there were white people, but the white people listened to like Dave and Stormzy. So I didn't know, like Sweet Caroline, like I've never heard that song before until I came to uni. So but then I think that completely changed. Obviously, maybe it's the college that I go to. I mean, it's still pretty white, but I feel like the people from ethnic minorities are doing a great job, and they're very welcome, inviting. Even like the white people, like I have no problem with them. They're all very nice. They're very pleasant. They're very open to conversation about change and privilege and things like that as well.
That's awesome. And what's the one goal you have for the next academic year?
I want to get first. I didn't get first this time, and it frustrated me. It bugged me a little bit. It made my skin a little bit itchy. Like, I wasn't upset because it's my first year, and I've been like, there's a lot of changes that you have to like get used to in Cambridge.
Of course.
But at the same time, I'm a little bit competitive, and there's a ranking system, and that speaks to my soul. Like, like in my chemistry A-level class in GCSE, my chemistry teacher used to always hand out the top 3 papers first. And if I wasn't in that top 3, I'd be annoyed for the entire day.
Wow.
Because I'm just like, I have a competitive... If I know I can do good at something, I want to do the best.
So it's not for like other people validation, just your personality. You're built that way where you want to be the best.
Like, it just depends. Like, obviously, if it's like sports and you ask me to run a race, like if I come last, I don't care because I know I'm bad at it. But if I know it's something that I can do really well at, I like it. It gets to me.
I mean, the only problem is... The kind of selection criteria at Cambridge means that almost everyone coming in has that kind of mentality.
Yeah, but it's great and I love it. I like the challenge. I like the competition. I don't like people that are complacent. I like it when they're like, I'm going to beat you. I'm like, no, you're not. And they beat you. But I like it because it makes me think, I'm going to beat them next time.
But you can still have be competitive and be really good friends and wish someone well and, a healthy rivalry rather than a toxic one which just isn't worth it academically. Right?
It's like pointless. Like, realistically, even though you're first and second, like on the ranking, let's say, you're both still gonna get first. So it doesn't really matter. You can help each other, and I think I always mention my sixth form because I've had like a really, really great experience. Well, apart from the pandemic, but like minor things. I had a really great experience because we did have that competitive nature, but we also did have, like, we would help each other. I would like text my friend at like 1 a.m. I'd be like, Aradia, I don't understand this question. And he'll be like, that's easy. And then he'll send me his working out answers. And then I'll be like, oh, okay. Oh, wait, you made a mistake here. He said, really? No, I'm lying. I just wanted to make myself feel better.
Yeah, no, I think a collaborative approach definitely is the way to go. And for any like freshers going in, I think it's great to strive and to work hard and to push your intellectual boundaries, but ultimately what you will remember is more the friendships and the times that you've struggled together and can kind of support one another, and ultimately once that grade is gotten, it's not going to limit
you forget about it.
Like of course you want to get a 2-1-2-2, like you don't want to not pass, but I think ultimately you get a degree from Cambridge. And
I think another big mistake I made in my first year is I didn't make a lot of friends on my course until the last term. And like my DOS sat me down in my DOS meeting. His name's Paul. I love Paul Elliott. He's amazing. He sat me down and he was like, right, so your maths supervisor flagged something. What courses do your friends do? I was like, they're just Landex. They're Landex. And he said, right then, you need to start making more friends on your course. I was like, it doesn't matter, but it does, because a Landec is never going to be able to help me with my chemistry problem. And when I'm in a lab, I'm not going to be there with a Landec. Obviously, it's great to have varied degrees and perspectives and be friends with whoever you're comfortable with. But it's also very important to have people that you can work and understand your struggle.
Well, best of luck next year in your quest for a first. But I'm sure that once the year starts, you would entertain yourself with other extracurriculars, and I hope that ultimately it's the process of going for a first that you go for rather than basing it solely on the outcome. But I'm sure you will be fine. But no, it's a pleasure to meet you in person and to have the
Thank
conversation.
you.
How have you found the experience?
This is so much fun. I love talking. I like hearing myself talk.
Who are you going to send this podcast episode to?
My dad. My dad, like my friends, maybe my grandma. She won't understand it, but you know, she likes the sound of my voice as well. So
I might just end on one last question.
yes.
The new master at Homerton.
Simon. Yes.
Yeah, Simon. As a black woman in university, seeing another black person being appointed in that role, do you feel something special or different?
Yeah, Simon is so like down to earth and very cool. Like I came into Cambridge thinking I'm gonna avoid my principal because this is a fancy institution. This guy's probably a fancy guy. Like I don't relate. And then I remember during Black History Month, he actually sat down and he did a talk with all of us, and like he was like, okay, he came up to me. He's like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, you know, what's your dream? I was like, make money. I don't know. Like, he was like, okay, find your why and let me know by the end of the year.
Oh wow.
I didn't find the why, but I now questioned why I didn't have a why, which is interesting. And he knows majority of people by name, especially the black people in Homerton, and we find it really, like, I'm appreciative of it because it makes us feel seen. Like, he'll come up to me, he'll be like, hi Jesi, like, how's your day been? The book you're reading, he'll recommend me a song.
Wow.
You know, genuinely, like, it makes me feel like there's always a space for me there.
Great, and certainly back to what we were saying, it's about the smallest acts of kindness. And remembering someone's name is one of the easiest things that, well, it's not easy, but if you do commit to it, it makes a huge difference. And for someone like him in that role to take the extra effort and to really just connect with students, that's the leadership style I admire. So thank you for sharing. But no, honestly, it's been awesome, and I wish you well for the second half of summer, and I'll see you in Cambridge if you're not too busy studying.
Thank you. Thank you. That was actually really fun.